The seat of the presidency will always be filled by a man preeminent for his virtue and his ability.
You are listening to And If Love Remains,
Speak peace like a Buddhist.
a unique show spotlighting people, ideas, science, culture, and art. Your host, Mike Leavitt.
3, 2, 1, go! Yeah! We have liftoff.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to that great podcast in the sky, And If Love Remains, and I am its messenger and lovely host, Mike Leavitt. And we have, once again, I would say here in studio, but it's your studio, brother, Joe Wolverton.
My rented studio. I've
Well,
rented this studio.
the rented, well, better than being a rented man.
Mule.
Mule? Yeah, yeah, it's better to have a rented studio than a rented
Or
mule.
redheaded.
That would be
There's so many things you could be. French.
right. Yeah, that Canadian.
No, come on. Our boy Andrew, man.
That's
It's
a
like-
low blow.
Yeah, it's a thing. It's like one of our good friends, Andrew, is Canadian, and he's awesome. Freedom,
awesome.
patriot, awesome dude, all around awesome guy. And he's got to be a country. Well, of course, you know what am I talking about? I'm a countryman with Joe Biden.
That's true.
I was about to say he's a countryman with Trudeau. Yeah, well, I'm a countryman with Joe Biden. So we all have our crosses to bear.
Right. So listen,
If
I will
only instead of crosses, we were bearing guillotines.
boom shakalaka.
Get me canceled because I said they. As Trenchard and Gordon said, hang them and hang them speedily.
That's right. And
He's
so
talking about your clothes on the line.
that's right. I will hang Canadians' clothes if Canadians will hang American clothes, and
Like that. What was that movie? Do you remember what was that movie where the people met on the train, the man and the woman? It's
yeah.
You kill my husband, I'll kill your wife.
Right.
thing that-
Hang clothes. Yeah.
No, kill. Murder.
That's right. Kill, no murder.
Killing, no murder. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, murder. Killing is no murder if you're killing something that deserves to be killed.
That's true.
That deserves to be killed, and better that one man perish than a nation dwindle in unbelief.
That is a true principle.
And yes, it was a true principle.
Yes.
And is.
It is.
Timeless and true. I'm going to enjoy a beverage.
All right. And we're going to talk about some more true principles. Some timeless.
I never met my principal in high school.
Oh, really?
I mean, I knew who he was, but I never met him. It was always the assistant principal. Shout out, Mr. Basra, if you're not passed on to your reward. Never met my. I mean,
Really?
he was there. I knew who it was. He was in the yearbook.
Yeah.
And I think he probably made, an appearance or something occasionally.
At an assembly or two.
Yeah, an assembly. But always dealt with the assistant principal.
Now, were you at a pretty big school or a smallish?
This is what you call big.
I guess that's true.
My graduating class was like 380 people.
Okay.
So that's
Yeah.
big-ish. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not. I
It's-
feel that way in
it's not-
California. It's like, my graduating class was 1,200.
Right. Well, yeah, I know. Like, I live in Gilbert, Arizona, and these schools are enormous. 5,000.
I think the total population of our school was under 2,000.
Yeah.
And it was 10th through 12th.
Okay.
Yeah. So, the other class, I would say we were under two. I don't know, Chad, any one of y'all, Anita, any one of y'all that went to school with me. I think it was under 2,000. I never met my principal. So I don't know if he was a true principal or not, Mike.
That's
Fun with homonyms.
I did meet my principal.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I got,
Did he get in trouble? Is that why you met him?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I met him because I was on the qualifying list to go to Boys State. So I met him. I had both.
I think it's
Maybe that's because I was in
Boys
trouble.
State. Is that juvenile hall?
No.
Juvie. Did you do a turn in juvie?
I did. No, I did not.
I did.
Yeah.
I was deported to Sweden, even though I wasn't really from there.
Huh.
Mm.
Did that have anything to do with like sneaking up on the Russians?
No, it's because I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die. So
yeah, we've all been there at once. Yeah, Reno will do that to you. I was born in Reno, so I know that.
You were born in Reno?
I was born.
Isn't it the biggest little city, or what do they call it?
In the world?
Yeah. I can't. I can go. Yeah, the only city I really can't visit for legal reasons is Albuquerque.
Okay.
The Kirky.
Yeah.
As we call
the Kirk.
It. The Kirky. The police. They actually know me.
Oh.
No, I'm just making it up.
I mean, I know you've been on a list or two.
I am proudly on many lists. America's Most Wanted. People's Sexiest Man Alive.
Yeah.
Most likely to tell lies about lists he's on. I'm on lots of lists. I am on the Southern Poverty Law Center list of domestic terrorists. Yes, I
see that. That's a
yes. I'm proud of that.
Where's that's definitely a notch on the old.
I don't know if can we hear the applause when it does it? I think you can hear him in the headphones, but you guys probably can't hear.
Yeah,
well, it's applauding anyway.
You well deserved. I at some point would like to be on that list. I think that would be.
I was called a neo-Confederate.
A neo-Confederate,
which I'm like, dude, take away the neo and you got it right.
Can you please? Yeah. Can you butter me up anymore?
I know. What? Okay, fine. I'll take you out.
Oh, that's a great.
She says she won't go. Take me out. Remember Franz Ferdinand? That band. They rocked, dude.
Dude, I need to check them out. I don't remember them.
Franz Ferdinand, Take Me Out. That was their big hit. She says she won't go. I say, don't you know?
Oh, wait. Okay.
Take
when you sing
out.
it like that.
When I sing it exactly like they do.
I mean,
you got the golden throat. Beyonce.
You mean the real winner of the Grammy?
Yeah, I'm going to let you talk, Mike. The first one. Shout out to Yay. Yeah. Penny Road. What are we doing, Mike?
Dude, I don't know, man. Well, we should talk a little bit of Cato. Cato time. Cato. We've done this before. We've taken one of their letters, taken one of their writings.
Yes.
And
their missives,
essays.
It's
yeah.
Fun with synonyms. Come on, Mike. Loosen up, man.
Dude. Well, I'm just learning because I'm just the old college dropout here, man. I'm just like figuring stuff out,
College dropout? Are you a beauty school dropout?
They didn't accept me at beauty school.
I was in art school, not as a student, but as a naked model.
Oh, naked model?
Yeah, for the students to paint the perfect male physique.
I bet you got paid well for that too.
Yeah, I got paid by the pound. So I was really, really happy about that. It was after the fire, and I was swallowing a lot of trauma along with a lot of pizza and donuts.
Ooh.
But one quick trip to Denmark, bada boom, bada bing, I got a new passport. And here I am today.
Welcome home.
Thanks, man. Hey, I'm not from Sweden. They deported me there, but I'm not from here. And they're like, you sound Swedish.
Wait, is that really what happened? They said,
no, that's all completely
I am gullible, dude.
No, it's not you're gullible. This is a problem that I have is that people believe things I say. And I've never stopped taking advantage.
Part of the deal is that, first of all, you have much, as George Bush once said, gravitas.
Hey now.
But the other thing is,
I like it when you talk Latin,
right? Is you do have some crazy stories, and so
see, people say that I don't. Okay, yes. I know that people say they're crazy. I don't think I think a
Right.
couple of them are like, yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
But like people are always like, dude, that's the craziest stuff. And when I step back, I hope someday that I can see them as crazy as other people do. Because right now I'm just like, there are a couple of them. I'm like, yeah, that's weird. But you know, it's one of those things, man. It's when I was younger, there's nothing that if someone dared me to do something, I'm doing it. And I always have this sort of like, you know, I have only, you know, you've done the ancestry DNA
Mhm.
and being, I think I'm something like 77% English. And my Scandinavian DNA, my Viking DNA is only like something crazy, like 6% or something.
But it owns your chromosomes.
Well, no, it's like, no, I don't think that. I think it's like, I just have this thing that I'm like, what's over there? And let's go see. And so I would just go with my friends and we would just disappear into the forest
Right.
just to see where we'd end up. I don't know that you could do that today, but no, I was not deported to Sweden. No, never was deported. Never was deported.
You probably do well at two truths and a lie.
Dude, it's so funny you say that because Kylie, my wife, she is like, you are the king of two truths. She's like, because all the truths that you can use in your reservoir sound like lies.
Right. Right.
You know, and so, you know, like,
in fact, I think if I were to play with you, I would probably pick the one that sounded like the most plausible.
And it would be the lie.
Right.
Yeah. That's the trick to it. If I ever play with y'all, two truths and a lie, just pick the one like the blind Rabbi Micah, like he says, pick the one that sounds plausible, and that's the lie.
Yeah.
Because I'm grateful to have lived, but it's the explorer in me that I have just a wandering Jones, man. I want to know what's there and who was there. Just, I don't know. It really is. It really is interwoven into the double helix of my DNA, to be honest.
I do think like anybody who's like a keen observer of people, like you can't help but go out into the world and see stuff.
Yeah, I remember I had a friend who worked, and this is going to sound so 1980s, but it was what was it? It was 1990s. He was the dispatcher at a cab company.
Okay.
But it was what they called I don't know if any of y'all ever been to military installations, but I don't know if they still have them to this day. I don't know. I haven't been on a military installation in a while, but I grew up, you know, an Army brat, and they had these things called cab stands. And a cab stand was where you could call a cab and the dispatcher, my friend Darren, would send them out, or you could go up and just stand there and get a cab.
Okay.
And it's a cab stand. So I would go, and he would work the night shift sometimes, and I would go and just sit with him at work because I didn't care. And just the people watching was an experience like no other.
Yeah.
Just listen. You know what it reminds me of? When I got home from my mission, my parents, we're from Tennessee. They were living in Clarksville, Tennessee. And this was I got home December of 1990.
Okay.
So we're talking 1991. My sister and her husband lived with my parents. I lived with my parents. And strangely enough, my parents lived with my parents, which is weird. But that's just the way it is in our family. It's because of our Armenian heritage. But I just said I was like 77% English and 23% Armenian. No, I don't.
And 40% Viking.
40% Viking.
I
was born a poor black child.
Yeah,
man, on the Mississippi Delta. Never thought that hard scrabble life that I would end up where I am. Any road. So when I lived,
done well for yourself.
Thank you, man. I pulled myself up by my bootstraps.
That's right.
But I'm a self-made man. I'm not even made. Do you know what I mean?
But do you have a maid?
No.
You were playing with homonyms again.
Fun with homonyms. When I was a lawyer, I had a maid.
Yeah.
Single and a lawyer. You can imagine.
That'd be. Yeah.
I'm not single or a lawyer today. But anyway, I have a wife, which is worth more than any maid. But not that she's a maid, but you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean.
Any road. So when I got home and I was living there in Clarksville, the that my parents had a cordless phone. Remember those?
I do remember those.
Yeah, so my parents had a cordless phone. Now, at the end of their street, there was a bar called the Red Carpet.
Okay.
Now, Red Carpet, what a crazy name, right? The Red Carpet also had a cordless phone,
Okay.
right? So like people, come get me, I'm drunk, or whatever. Well, my dad had a, what do they call those things? That you listen, a police scanner.
Okay. Yeah.
And one of the frequencies, and it was a really nice one, and one of the frequencies picked up the cordless phone.
No
of the Red
way.
Carpet. Now, my sister and my brother-in-law, shout out, can attest, we would listen because it was the funniest thing.
I can only
You'd hear
imagine.
people, but you couldn't hear the other end of the conversation.
Which would be funnier, I think.
Yeah, it was funnier because we would make up the other person. So you could only hear the person at the bar is like, I'm at work. You know how like drunk people tend to raise their voice. They can't modulate.
Right.
I'm at work. No, I'm getting home late because I'm working hard. Or they'd be like, I need to kind of drunk as a driving. And,
Yeah.
would just, and it honestly, I mean, this is the era before I guess technically the internet was around, but we didn't have the internet in 1991. I guess some maybe Richie Riches did, but we didn't. But that was entertainment, man.
Yeah.
Turn that thing on and just listen to some conversations.
Man.
And what I wish is we could have conversed with, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That'd have been the best. Just like, like when people today, like when people will accidentally text you, trying to text, I'll carry on a conversation, man. Hey, Steve, are you coming to dinner tonight? Oh man, can I bring my new partner? It's like question mark.
I plan on it. Send me your address again.
Like, oh, are y'all not doing that? Are y'all, is it, we can't bring a +1? Just carry on conversation.
Right.
Somebody in one of my classes today, Mike, I feel a need to get this off my chest.
Okay. Confessions get
It might have been yesterday. What is today? Thursday?
Friday.
It was yesterday.
It's Frizz Day.
One young lady, I teach a class in Missouri via Zoom. All I want to do is zoom, and a boom, boom. Just shake your rump. She thought she asked me she's like, where are you from? And I said, what do you mean? She's like, are you from Canada? And I'm like,
what?
No, I'm from Memphis. And she's like, well, my grandma's from Mississippi and you don't sound like you're from Memphis, which is true. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the thing is, when I go home, my accent comes back. When I'm out here, it goes away because I'm accent chameleon. When I guarantee you, when I go to England for that month or whatever, I guarantee you I come back and annoy the bejesus out of people.
Because you're going to start talking about biscuits and...
No, not really that. But I'll start having... Dude, I can't listen. Sometimes I'll have the Rest is History podcast on all day while I work.
Shout out to Tom Holland.
Tom Holland and Dominic... Dominic.
It's really about Tom.
No, man.
I'm just kidding. Dominic is a stud. I love that podcast so much. Anyway...
Tom Holland. He doesn't even look like he does in the movies. You wouldn't even know he's...
No, it was him.
You wouldn't know that was Spider-Man or Peter Parker.
Right.
He looks so different on his podcast.
I think they do some CGI in the movies.
Yeah, CGI.
Or maybe it's the podcast they do the CGI.
You don't have to spell around me, dude. You can say just Siggy.
C.
Or is it Siggy?
Kidgy?
Go, hey, he. It would be Siggy. Anyway, what was I talking about? So sometimes I'll listen to The Rest is History all day. Like literally, I'll have it playing all day while I work. And by the time nighttime comes and Kylie I'm speaking with it, if not an English accent, I slip back into my English cadence.
Right.
And that's it. And so when I go home, my Southern accent comes back. But when I'm out here, it goes away.
So I mean, I don't want to nerd out on you a little bit. But and you had some fortunate circumstances to like live in different countries.
Yeah.
You also have a great
light up.
Not at all, dude.
Go ahead.
The wacky Letty.
Oh man, it's unfiltered. I only smoke Black Wings, and these are the original white eraser ones. So these are rare. These are like Lucky Strikes.
Lucky Stripes.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I
lived in many places.
You live in, and you also have a great love of language.
Yes, I do. Mm-hmm.
I never asked you this. How many languages do you speak, or can you understand?
4.
Okay.
Now, not counting Latin and Greek, because those are, I can read Latin and I can read Greek, not modern Greek, but what they call Koine Greek. I can read that, but you don't speak those.
Right.
So modern languages 4, with sliding degree of proficiency. Of course, I would say English narrowly edges out Spanish.
Okay.
So English and Spanish are pretty close.
Like if you had to write an article in Spanish, that wouldn't be.
Oh, I've done that.
It'd be a piece of cake.
Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've written articles in Spanish. I've translated manual. I used to do that, translate manuals into Spanish. Yeah, I could. Piece of cake. And then French, and then German. And I can read Italian.
Okay.
And often if you, on movies, when people will speak Italian, I can understand them. I couldn't speak it.
Right.
But I can understand it because of the romance, the shared romance provenance of
the Latin
Italian,
and
Italian, Spanish, and French and all that. Yeah. Same with Portuguese. I can understand when I have a cousin-in-law that is Brazilian, and I can understand Portuguese.
Okay. Muito bem, obrigado.
Yeah, all of that. I think, yeah. So, but to be able to speak and converse English, Spanish, French, and German.
Okay. That's cool. And yeah, that's.
But I grew up in those places.
Right.
So it sticks to you.
It's yeah, having those skills. It's interesting how those skills like are more helpful. Like, could you imagine yourself without those skills? Like,
I don't know. It's one of those things is like, what would my life be like but for? And
right. Like, I can't imagine not being able to play the piano or being able to read music. Like, that would be such a weird thing to not be able to look at a piece of music and know exactly what's on the page.
It would be. I think about, it's strange that you would ask, because I do think about this, because my wife has asked me, she tells me that when we first met, like literally just saw each other for the first time at dinner, her sister's husband's one of my longtime friends. And so we were having dinner at their house. She was living there for a while in Utah. And she said, one of the things that she was impressed by was they were talking about how I could speak 4 languages. And I don't know about speaking the languages. Who knows? You don't know what you don't know. But the thing that I think would be weird for me, would be an odd experience, would be to not be able to look at something in another language and sort of almost intuitively
figure it
catch on.
Yeah.
That would be weird for me. And that, to me, I take that as a spiritual gift, a gift of God. I do practice it, but it's one of those things. I think we all have those gifts, and that's just one that I got, is languages seem intuitive to me.
Right. Well, can you read like Hebrew?
Mm-mm. No, I started taking Hebrew at college. I took a semester and I'm like, no. I wish I could. I feel it's an embarrassment for me, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, I wish I could read the Hebrew Bible. I really do. James Madison, that's how he became, as they call it, the first graduate student at Princeton, is because once he graduated in 2 years. Now, doing all 4 years in 2 years.
And I suspect those 4 years worth of work is different than today's 4 years worth of work.
Dude, neither one of us, nor I think any of my professors in college could be accepted to a colonial university.
You were telling me this. What did somebody have to do? Like, what did they have to know just to get admitted as a freshman? Well,
first of all, you'd have to make an appointment,
Mhm.
right? You'd have to bring letters of introduction from somebody who, some alumni, some notable alumni,
Yeah.
and you would get alumnus. You would get, then you would have an interview, and it would be just a panel of professors who would pepper you with questions that a person prepared to, a person who is ready to matriculate at a university should be prepared and able to answer. And so I've written about this, the education of the founding fathers. I wrote an article about this. I think it's called "The Founders and the Classics" or something like that. And I put part of it in my book, one of my James Madison biographies. But it's like you would have to recite from memory a selection from Cicero, recite from memory a chapter or a section of a chapter from the Gospel of John in Greek, translate that into English. They would ask you tell me about the Battle of Cannae, tell me about the Battle of Zama, tell me what Herodotus says about the Egyptians. Tell me about Herodotus' account of Thermopylae. Tell me about Pericles' funeral oration. And that was just your history, and you had to know Latin and Greek. You had to know.
Yeah.
You had to be fluent in those things. And then then they'd go into your math and your science. And so I don't think people would get past the recite some Cicero for me and then translate that into English.
Oh.
And then translate that. And one of the things I remember from what used to be called King's College, where Hamilton went, which is now called Columbia University, one of their things was now change the tense of that Greek selection. Instead of making it, present tense, make it, past tense or whatever. Change the tense for me. And they would just sit there and judge you. And then it was a matter of, yes, you're ready. No, you're not. And if you weren't ready, you would just have to you'd have to reapply after whatever. Sometimes they would say, okay, you're not ready. You need to hire a tutor. You need to get more prepared. Don't try again for 6 months or whatever. But
right.
I mean, today, if you have a pulse, you can get in university.
Right. Yeah, it is. They're certainly, most universities, all universities are not selective at all.
No.
And they are looking for different things than academic readiness.
Right. Right. Yeah. And it's just, they're looking for money.
Right.
I mean, even now you see that stories all the time about, we're not requiring any sort of entrance exam anymore. So what do you pay for? And that's fine, but the problem is that generation after generation, we have a situation where now it's like I said, my professors couldn't get accepted as a freshman to a colonial university.
Yeah. It feels like with all of our technology and everything that we've got, going for us, it's almost like we're living on cut plants as far as like certainly virtue, but we're living on the cut grass of our parents still, and our founders, our fathers, because but also in education, like, what happens when we've lost all of that knowledge is we lose our liberty. We lose the things that matter the most.
Yeah. When I first started teaching in the late 90s, one of the things I would teach, I taught homeschool co-ops, and I would tell the kids that Latin is the language of liberty, that when you read Tacitus, when you read Sallust, when you read Cicero, if you read it in Latin, it fills you not only with a certain nobility, sense of it ennobles you, but it also enlightens you, because you read these things and It's the language of liberty because it's those things that stoked that fire in our fathers. By the time they were 11 years old, which is about the time they would start with a tutor, up to that point, they would be completely, just homeschooled and still homeschooled after that. But usually if you had resources, you would hire a tutor if your family had any sort of material resources. But you would know the stories that today are forgotten. And the fact that they're forgotten is, to my mind, a significant contributor to our cultural decline.
Yeah.
Because we do not speak a language where we can communicate timeless principles of good government, of liberty, of human nature, of the laws, divine and secular. We don't have a language that we share of, timeless stories. Like our fathers could say something, like, well, as Cicero said, and they would understand each other. That now we can't do that. And we don't, a 9-year-old, I don't even know what they read. I have no idea.
Well, and it's like, if you think like, what is culture? What is a culture? What is a society? And
what's the root word of culture?
Cult?
Right. So we use cult pejoratively, but cult is just a group of people who are in the, who are in the know, who share a common language, a common belief. And that's what a culture is, a cult, right? And in the non-pejorative sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so and you have, in a cult, what do you have? Rites of initiation, right? You have your secret handshake. You have your key words. You have all of these things. You have your rites of passage, your initiation.
And these aren't mysterious things. These are things that bind a people together.
Right. And that's what culture is. And we don't have that anymore because we have allowed people to erase from our collective memory critical components of our culture, such as Latin and Greek history, as well as, religious aspects of that culture, and to mock them openly, and then to push, not only marginalize them, but in some cases criminalize it.
Right.
The concept of cancel.
Well, and when you lose that memory, when you lose those stories, when you don't understand history, specifically, Greek and Roman history, I can't help but think about like who would the founders have compared like Joe Biden's speech to last night? What Roman emperor would they say that guy is so corrupt and he's so out of
well, they demagoguery and is something that the founders hated, and that's what Joe Biden is. He's a demagogue, right? He's a tyrant, but he's a demagogue. He's beyond that. He's a demagogue, and I think one of their favorite demagogues was Philip, Alexander the Great's dad, because of the way he was able to insinuate himself into the confederacies of Greece and take them over. And he was like their prototypical. Although there were others. Pisistratus was another that they talked about often, as being a prototypical demagogue. Julius Caesar was a prototypical demagogue. And so any one of those guys, but the thing about demagogues anciently, at least to my way of reading, where they were at least, smooth talkers.
Right.
At least they had that, you know what I mean?
Right.
Pisistratus, what is it? Pisistratus was said to be that, he could convince anybody of anything. He was such a smooth talker, really easy to communicate, really good communicator. Caesar had people believing he was a man of the people, Philip of Macedon would be like, well, I'm just, we're Greeks. We're all Greeks. Let's just have a pan-Hellenism and I'll, come down and just be one of you. Well,
right.
And so he was able to convince them of that. Pericles. There's any number of them, but that are smooth talking. But we don't even have our demagogues can't even do us the respect of being smooth talkers.
I want to push back just a little bit. And
no, you're pushing back onto the shot.
Oh, dude, I am. What? That's okay.
No,
you're prettier.
No, it's not.
There
you go.
There we go. I
wonder how you ended up over there.
I don't know, man. That's weird.
You can put that wherever you want it.
We're gonna do this for a second. Wait, now I'm totally. There we go.
No, don't do that. It's freaking covering your face.
Okay. What I wanted to say was, I want to push back on that we don't have a culture and we don't have secret handshakes and words, because we do.
Are you looking to bring that closer to you?
Yeah, we'll do.
Well, you can just undo it and pull it. This little thing. Undo that. There we go. Show him what he's wanting.
Winner. I'm in the shop.
There you go.
But we do have them. They're just, they're BLM. They're LGBTQ. Blah blah blah. They're and our
fair enough. We don't have Western.
Right.
culture.
And again, going back to the speech, like, it's so fascinating to me to watch, like, the standing ovations that happen. The how about this? I saw a video after the speech, and I don't even know who these guys are, but they're senators or some congressman of some sort, and they're talking to Joe Biden after, and if you hear the speech, you know the guy that Joe Biden cannot put two sentences together without cocaine. He can't do it. He's completely, there's no sensible reason for that man to be running a household, let alone a country. And you have these guys coming up to him after the speech saying, "You were on fire. You're incredible, man. That was the greatest speech." And I'm just thinking, like, not only these guys sycophants, but they're cultish sycophants. They're out of their mind. But again, this goes back to your point and what we've been kind of talking about. Like, when you lose sight, you think that you're not able to make those comparisons to people to even Hitler. I mean, or people in the past, that were true tyrants. We don't recognize that, we may have one right here.
Well, and we don't have a notion of who we want to lead us, because, we don't want to be led by someone who is virtuous and wise, because it will expose our wickedness and our ignorance.
Right.
I was going to look up something here while you vamp.
Okay.
I want to talk about just something I was telling about today about Joe Biden, because but go ahead and vamp for a minute while I find it.
Okay. So here I am vamping, talking about the wind and the willows and the trees and the pillows and the fellows that slip through the night.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you walk on the street and look at your feet, you say, "My, they're so bright." See, Shakespeare was the man.
Was that Shakespeare?
It was. No, it was not. See, I can't tell stories like you, man.
Who was it?
It was, the riff. It was me on the fly.
That was just you freestyling?
Freestyling, brother. Boom, boom, chicka, boom.
I'll find this.
Yeah.
It's from I just know about where it is. I'm trying to, it's in the 70s of the.
And let me say this. One of the things I really, appreciate about some of the stuff that we've been doing, whether it's our book club, some of the stuff that you sent me to read,
Mm-hmm.
It has really been enlightening. Even just like the language of it is so good and sublime. I feel more educated, and that sounds kind of weird because obviously I am, because when you read, you can't help but be educated.
Right.
But it's different. It's like with my piano students, I tell my students, you should play Bach, not because of, not because, you should learn a song or two by Bach, but because by playing Bach, you'll become a better person. Not just a better musician, you become a better person.
Got you.
Because you've got to like think about Bach, and and when you start putting your brain together, and I think some of the stuff that we've been reading, these Cato's letters, discourses on civil disobedience, and other such good works, are that's powerful stuff, man.
Yeah, it's one of these things. I am trying to find it here. It's in the Federalist Papers. It's where Alexander Hamilton discusses the qualities of a president, that, why we would want, why they have the Electoral College, what it was meant to do. And the purpose was that it would end up selecting a man who was, renowned for his virtue and his wisdom.
Well, there's, it's funny. I love this word. I looked it up a couple of years ago, and I kind of have to look it up every once in a while to remind myself what it is. But it's kakistocracy.
Oh yeah, the kakis.
It's people ruled by the worst of us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And we do. And the question is like, why don't virtuous people run for office? Why don't good people either want to or become leaders? And it's
right. I mean, you don't want to because it's thankless.
Right.
And if you're doing it honestly, you end up like the founding fathers, you end up penniless.
Right.
And you end up,
at best, you might end up dead.
And you have no thanks, because in a corrupt country, no one's gonna applaud a virtuous man.
Right.
But here it is in Federalist 68, when they're talking about the Electoral College, and that it's designed that it was equally desirable that the immediate election should be, now this is speaking of the electors, that the electors should be men most capable of analyzing the qualities adapted to the station and acting under circumstances favorable to deliberation and to a judicious combination of all the reasons and inducements which were proper to govern their choice. A small number of persons selected by their fellow citizens from the general mass, who will be most likely to possess the information and discernment requisite to so complicated an investigation. So we don't do that now, because the electors that we have are just a reflection of a popular vote.
Right.
So we no longer have, so when we're like, well, the Electoral College, get rid of it, don't get rid of it. Well, I don't get rid of it at all. I'm not saying that. We need to keep it because it prevents the popular coastal cities from electing the president for everyone. But the way it was meant to function was we would have these men, like the men most capable of analyzing the qualities of men selected from the general population who possess information and discernment above the rest, and it was peculiarly desirable to afford as little opportunity as possible to tumult and disorder.
I mean, because you could really make a case that as the presidency was conceived, we may not know who the president was going to be until the electors.
Oh yeah,
chose.
often. Yeah,
they would go and they would say, they make. I assume the way it was supposed to happen that they would make recommendations and then they would vote, and it would be decided within that electoral college. Because you felt comfortable with that because you knew that you had chosen, and you knew that your fellow countrymen had chosen, virtuous and good men to make that decision, and they would in turn not choose an unvirtuous and wicked man to hold that office, because they knew how important that office was.
Right, and just listen to this. And honestly, guys, this is not just anti-Joe Biden. This is this is pro pro-constitutional, not anti-Biden or anti-Trump or anti-anything, but this is pro-constitutional. So this is Federalist 68 for those of you scoring at home. And this is what Hamilton wrote regarding, okay, we have the Electoral College, the idea, and he goes and explains really thoroughly why we want that. We don't do it anymore. We use electors, but only as a manifestation of popular vote, right? We don't do it. But listen to this. He says, this process of election, so what we described, having electors, men of wisdom, of experience, who can discernment, who are not subject to cabal and intrigue and tumult and disorder, who will go and calmly, dispassionately decide who would be president. This process of election affords a moral certainty that the office of president will seldom fall to any man who is not in an eminent degree endowed with the requisite qualifications, talents for low intrigue, and little arts of popularity might be alone to elevate a man to the first honors in a state, but it will require other talents and a different kind of merit to establish him in the esteem and confidence of the Union, or of so considerable a portion as necessary to make him a candidate. There'll be a constant probability of seeing this station, the presidency, filled. Now listen, just come on now. Come, let us reason together. So if we had the Electoral College, he says, it will not be too strong to say that there will be a constant probability of seeing this station, the presidency, filled by characters preeminent for ability and virtue.
Oomph.
Who have an aptitude and tendency to produce a good administration. Preeminent for virtue and ability. I don't care who you are. You name me a candidate for president that's preeminent for his virtue.
Not one.
I have not. Ron Paul.
Ron Paul.
That man is preeminent for his ability and his virtue. But you name me a president, and I'm sorry, I know people love, people have their favorite tyrants. But again, name me a guy that you say, I can vote for this man because he is preeminent for his virtue.
Right.
And he says, if you do it right, it's a near constant probability that that seat, the seat of the presidency, will always be filled by a man preeminent for his virtue and his ability. But that goes back to, well, we don't use the Electoral College anymore. But it goes beyond that. Why don't we do it that way? Right? We get pushed toward democracy, and the people who have studied history, those who are working to destroy the freedom here and everywhere, know that we're not being taught history. And as long as we're not being taught history, everything's new to us.
Right.
It's like Cicero said,
Yep.
To not know history is to remain forever a child.
Yeah. That's a fact. And because what ends up happening is by the time we've learned the lessons, it's time for the next generation, and we don't pass out those lessons on. Or it's systematically taken away.
Well, how many years has the federal government dominated through one process or another the curricular standards of American schools? 100?
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah.
Easy 100
Yep.
years. So that's 5 generations.
Yeah.
So your grandparents weren't taught. I mean, and if you're talking, my parents didn't know Latin.
Right.
My parents weren't taught. My parents weren't taught, Sallust and Tacitus and Livy and Polybius and Plutarch. They didn't know who those people were.
Right.
I wasn't taught it.
Not at all.
I had to come to it on my own. Right. And so we as a populace, we kind of get what we deserve in many ways.
Oh, for sure. And then
If we make excuses for people who are, let's just be honest, who are not virtuous,
yeah,
and we make excuses because, oh, well, it's not as bad as the other guy, or yeah, but he does so many good things. I mean,
we get what we deserve.
Yeah.
And I think a great example of that kind of cult of personality, or that it's because it's not your guy. I'm in favor of my guy. You know, I we were talking earlier about the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson. You know, and how he was the new savior of Congress, and he was going to come in and he was going to impeach Joe Biden, and he was going to, we were going to see so much happen, and
he's not gonna capitulate,
right,
and sign, these budget deals, and he's not gonna do that rubbish.
And they, yeah, of course, and you can make the same exact case for Trump, who said he was going to drain the swamp and didn't, and probably can't, frankly. But
No.
You could say the same thing about Obama, who was going to fix race relations in America. You could say the same thing about George W. Bush, who was going to bring democracy to the world.
Thank goodness he was unsuccessful.
Right. I guess, yeah.
Well, that kind of gets us then to what we were going to talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only been 40 minutes.
It's okay.
No, I like it. We're having a good time.
This is a good time.
Having a good time. Shout out to Dusty Slay. We're having a good time.
Party.
You've got to fight.
Well, you're right.
Yeah, to party.
So they say.
I like to party.
Because we're not going to take it. We're not going to take it anymore.
So 303 years ago today, or roughly today, 303 years ago this week, Trenchard and Gordon, this time it's Thomas Gordon, wrote a letter known as Cato's letter number 19, The Force of Popular Affection and Antipathy to Particular Men, How Powerfully It Operates and How Far to Be Regarded. Basically, just what does it mean to our culture, to our way of life, to politics, to government, to mostly that, to politics and government, and to the well-being of our country, that what does popularity do? What does hatred of a guy, of an individual, how that can move masses, and how that mass movement can affect everyone in the country based on the likability, believability of one guy.
Right.
And how that affects everything. So, want to talk about it?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's bring it on. So, so one thing I love, and we'll just start right at the very beginning.
It's a very good place to start. When you
read, you begin with
ABC.
When you sing, you begin with
Do, re, mi.
Do, a dear. Anyway, so he talks about, that we have this great bias of superstition. It's found everywhere in human nature. Ignorance and prejudice proceeding as often from education itself. In other words, it's the education that we receive that gives us the...
Yeah, we like to say, oh, these people are ignorant. Well, he's saying it's as often education as ignorance that lead to these ignorance and prejudice.
Right.
It's spending 12 years in a government indoctrination camp and then another 4 years in a bigger government indoctrination camp that costs money.
That you're paying for and the government's paying for.
Right.
Double dipping.
So you've got 16 years. And make no mistake, that's why it's so easy to get into bloody college.
Right.
That's why student loans are given to you and then you're absolved from repaying them. For the idea being, if we can get them 12 years compulsory, what if we tacked another 4?
Mm-hmm.
It made it where you don't go to. Do you realize at the time of the founding, you only went to college if you were going to be a lawyer or a minister?
I didn't know that.
The colleges were started by churches.
That's true.
Well, to train their ministers.
Right.
You only went to college if you're going to be, or sometimes a doctor, not always, but lawyers and ministers went to college. And so today, everybody goes to college.
Right.
Lottie-dottie and everybody.
And let's be honest, a 4-year degree takes 5 to 8 years to get these days. And there's reasons for that too.
Well, yes, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Because then we not only have 5, let's just say for the sake of being conservative, 5 years plus your 12. So we got 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then what? You're paying that back for another 20.
Right.
So you're a wage slave and you've been in an indoctrination camp.
That's right.
And you've been indoctrinated. So this is why Brother Gordon says it isn't this ignorance and prejudice that's not to be found among the uneducated. It's often found in equal measure among the educated.
Right.
So let's not get it twisted and be like, well, people support Biden because they're ignorant. Maybe, but there's also well-educated people that support him.
Right. In fact, there's a case to be made that you can fool a doctor into then much easier than you can fool, somebody who's a farmer, for example. Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yep. And I one of the things that I marked on here is at the end of that, he says, a very small part of mankind is exempted from the delusive influence of omens, presages. Thank you. I'm gonna have to look that one up. And prognostics. And so I wrote down like what separates these people, what makes these people different.
The ones who are immune from it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. What is it?
Well, I think it's discernment as a big part of it, and I think that comes through an honest and true education. Like I don't think you can and the spirit. Like number one, you have to have a belief in something bigger than government, bigger than the school that's teaching you, bigger than your mentor or professor. You have to have somebody who's above everything that you pledge allegiance to, that's not man-made, and then through that you can receive discernment about what is what is true superstition. Because there's plenty of atheists that say, well, oh, you believe in this Jesus, that you believe in this superstition, when the fact is, they believe just as much in the superstition of government, even more so.
Yeah, it's like those people that say, oh, if we had anarchy, it would be violence and bloodshed, right, and just rampant fraud. Right, that's theoretical.
Yeah,
because we don't have anarchy, but it's a fact that under government we have all.
All of those things in abundance.
But
right,
yeah, there are very few people willing to be educated. It takes, talk about Trenchard and Gordon. Gordon wrote when he wrote, it's Trenchard in that case with the Independent Whig. Number 1, where he writes about education, and he says, everybody's defensive about it.
Mm-hmm.
People are defensive. No one wants to be like, well, I guess that dude really does know more than I do.
Right.
It takes a really extraordinary,
some humility,
almost superhuman humility.
Yeah.
To admit, okay, I was wrong. And I went through that myself. I'm not saying I'm, any sort of exemplary person. I'm just saying that I did have to go through that painful transition from believing these things that I thought were 100% true and finding out they just weren't true. And it was difficult, but once you walk into the light and the light grows brighter and brighter, you actually are filled with the desire to know more. And as you grow to know more, it helps you see better. It's like climbing Parnassus. The higher you get on the mountain, the better you see the things below.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is.
Yeah. The Bible talks about having watchmen on the watchtowers.
Yeah.
And in a sense, we can all be those watchmen if we're willing to climb the tower.
Deep. That was profound.
Yeah.
I at the beginning there, one of the things that I marked is how he says imagination to nearly everybody, right? He says almost everyone. Imagination is reality and delusion is certainty and truth.
Yeah.
I don't know a better definition. If you look up 2024 in the dictionary, it's going to say that.
Yeah.
that people, whatever they imagine, to them, that thing is real.
Right.
Their
Men can have babies.
Yes, their delusions are certainty and truth. There aren't two sexes, right?
Right.
That you can change your all of that.
That the police are there to protect you instead of protecting the city.
Right. That your vote actually counted.
Right.
You know.
All
Oh,
of
it did the thing. Do you see that? How iOS does that now?
Oh, hey.
I don't know if it'll do it. It does it. It does it sometimes. It'll like put the like, that's right. It'll put a little thumbs up.
Wait a sec. I is that what it is? Because I was on a call.
Yeah.
And I went like this, and it had like fireworks go off.
Yeah. And if you go, oh, that's awesome. It'll have, yeah, I don't know how to trigger it.
Yeah.
I would trigger it all the time if I knew how. But anyway, what a definition of how we are today.
Yeah.
Your imagination to you is reality.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I identify as that right there. That's you identifying as someone whose imagination is your reality.
Right.
Your delusions, you consider them certain and true. And how overcoming that?
Man.
How do we, because he's saying, in this letter, number 19, he's like, what do you do about that? Because that is nearly, insuperable. How do you overcome the fact that a very small part of mankind is exempt from this sort of, my imagination is my reality, my delusions, I believe, are true and certain.
Right.
How do you have it in all kinds of ways that, so-and-so is a Christian,
Yeah.
So your delusions that the Constitution, or that Jesus was a socialist.
Right. Or the Constitution will protect us.
Anything. Yes. I have constitutional rights.
Right. Right.
Right.
That's good.
Any sort of delusion, any sort of imagination and it's real. And not only is it real today, but it is legally enforced delusion. Tell me that's not disturbing, Mike.
Yeah.
How do we get where we want to be if we are forced to live in a culture where delusion is not only reality, but it's legally enforced on those of us who aren't deluded?
Wear a mask or go to jail.
If you stand 6 feet apart, you won't get the disease. Bull.
Right. You can go to Walmart, but not to church.
Any of it.
All of it, yeah.
What does, you see what I'm saying? It's not just that because there obviously throughout the history of mankind, there have been delusional people.
Mm-hmm.
I am delusional. I'm sure about lots of things. You are delusional, but I don't enforce my delusions at the point of a gun. I don't enforce my delusions with the threat of marginalization socially or economically. I can't enforce my delusions at the threat of imprisonment.
Right.
But we do that. And what they're getting at in this letter is that's because you have people that everything they believe is based on how much they like or hate somebody.
Yeah.
And and it's like he says, now, although these whimsies have no foundation but in opinion, so it's only opinion, right? That this guy is a constitutional conservative and you should vote for him because one guy is a socialist, but our guy is a constitutional conservative. He isn't, and it's demonstrably provable that he isn't, right? Take the guns now, worry about due process later is not a constitutional position, right? But they say, yeah, it has no basis in no foundation except opinion. He's our guy, and he's better than the other guy. But he says they produce as certain and regular events as if the causes were adequate in their own nature. Yet they're delusional, and their delusions are ridiculous and have no foundation other than their opinion and their delusions themselves. But the fact is, it affects us all.
Yeah.
we have to deal with the fact that if you send your kid to school, he's going to be taught in the 3rd grade safe ways to have homosexual, to sodomize someone.
Right.
That's just, and don't claim that you're going to deprogram your kid, because you're not. Because the reason your kid is in daycare, AKA school, is so the parents can both work so that you can afford the lifestyle that you prefer over having a virtuous and wise child. You prefer this delusion that you convince yourself of, the imagination that becomes real. Well, when my kid comes home, I deprogram him. You don't. So stop saying you do. Just admit that the extra trip to Disneyland every year is worth more to you than the sacrifice you'd have to make to have the mother stay at home teaching her children principles of virtue. Just admit it.
Yeah.
Or if you want, because don't be part of the problem. You want to sit here and say Donald Trump's a constitutional conservative. He isn't. He's a Republican, but that shouldn't make enough. A private corporation's public face should not be enough to convince an educated, virtuous person to vote for someone. And make no mistake, they are private the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, they're private corporations, right? They are private corporations. Just because they have a public face. And this is the problem, he says. These whimsies, they have no foundation but an opinion. But the sad fact is, these bizarre imaginations, they affect the real world.
Right.
That we now have to deal with.
Right. And like just a really, simple and almost innocuous way is, for example, like the idea of primaries. Like, you say they're private corporations. There's nowhere in the Constitution that talks about primaries. There's probably nowhere in the state constitutions that talk about primaries. Right. No. And yet there's laws about who can run in primaries, who can do this in primaries. And it's not enforced by the Republican and Democrat parties. It's enforced by law. It's enforced by police officers with guns. And so, and there's part of the delusion right there that somehow these parties and I think you've pointed this out that Madison talks about, like, Americans would never, a free people would never allow a government to get so out of control. And if they did, they would, essentially tear it down.
Right.
But I don't know if they saw like how embedded we would allow, how unvirtuous we would be and allow the governments and these corporations and these people to work hand in hand to suppress, people.
It comes down to those two things, I think, that he talks about. It comes down to, number one, education. We are not educated ourselves, and we are not educating our children. Mm-hmm. We are surrendering that to proxies we know nothing about. We know nothing about their character. We know nothing about any of that. And then, so we don't have education and we don't have virtue. And the one supports the other.
Yeah.
We don't have that. We've traded all of that for a mess of pottage, right? We've traded all of that for a more luxurious life, an easier life. We've traded all of that. But this is the thing, Mike. This is what it gets to the delusion. Just admit that you did it.
Right.
Just admit it. Say, I would rather have 20 streaming services, a trip, an extra family vacation, a bigger house, an extra car, a cell phone service. Admit that you'd rather have all of that than to educate your own child at home. Just admit, because if you don't, and you start making up pretenses, then you're feeding your delusion and you're becoming part of the problem when you're going to, the delusion is so deep that you convince yourself you're part of the solution because, well, when my kid come home, I deprogram them. Liar. You don't. How'd school go? Fine. Okay. Can I go to my room and get on my iPad? Yes, just go. And then mom's sitting on one end of the couch with her phone, dad's sitting on the other end with his phone, the TV's on in the background. Time comes, go to bed, we go to bed. We've seen the kids for about an hour that day. And the depth of the conversation was, how was school? Fine.
Yep.
And that's somehow the sort of stewardship that God is going to he's going to be okay. That's going to square with God, that sort of stewardship.
Well, I think that is part of the problem. That is really the issue, is that we are so anxious to fix the world through voting, through protesting, through all this stuff. We're so anxious to fix the outside world, and we're not willing to fix our own homes, fix our own hearts.
Don't go to a bloody school board and be like, I ain't gonna let you teach the 47 genders. When I was a boy, there's only 2. Because you know what? It's not gonna matter.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly, you know why it's not gonna matter? Because the day after that little school board meeting, you're dropping little Johnny off at that same school that's teaching him in the 3rd grade how to safely sodomize another male. How adult men and children, it's okay for them to have relations. You're teaching them that the founding fathers were racist, opportunists. So don't bother going to the school board meeting. Don't bother perpetuating the delusion that you're deprogramming your child. So you're telling me that you're going to take the several hours a day, because let's pretend that, I don't even think you could say safely science is untainted, but let's pretend math is, and maybe geography. I don't know.
Maybe.
But the point is, you're not going to match hour for hour to deprogram your child. Because your thing is, well, I'm tired because I've been at work all day. My wife's tired because she's been at work all day. We eat. We don't eat together. Right?
Right.
Wife and I hardly commute. Not my wife and I, but the typical American household. And so we don't
know our neighbors. We don't hang out together.
Right. We don't know those things. And this is the thing. And this is the problem that, Gordon is saying. We are perpetuating these delusions throughout our people. And it comes down to a thing where we end up attaching our happiness, our sadness, our success, our failure to individual personalities.
Right. And you know what's funny is that there is a part of the delusion, and he talks about this right here, right at the next part. He says, that if there is a change, let's say Trump does win, our guy wins, the change alone of a general or minister has often changed the fortune and disposition of a people, even where there have been no superior endowments in a successor. For if they can be made to believe that their misfortunes are owing to the ill conduct or ill genius of those who command them, the removal of the supposed cause of their misfortunes will inspire them with new courage and resolutions, which are almost always rewarded with success and victory. And it's looking at the issue in exactly the opposite direction.
This was written 303 years ago, but that's true, right?
It's true.
As soon as Trump gets back in the White House, when we get the White House back, we're going to turn this country around. We had the White House with him, and the country didn't get turned around. Obamacare is still the law.
Right.
Red flag laws still exist.
Right. There's still illegals being poured in.
There's still billions of dollars sent to foreign governments.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We still make foreign leaders rich on the money stolen from poor America. But here it is. All you have to do, you just have to make them believe. So you read this as a handbook for those who promote tyranny and those who, benefit from it. They say, all you have to do is make people believe that if they can get rid of this one guy who's the cause of all their misfortune, then everything will turn around and be better.
See,
and it's so delusional that the day Trump is inaugurated, if it happens,
right,
the day after he's inaugurated, there will be Republicans acting like it's the second coming. And if Joe Biden or whomever is elected, who's a Democrat, they will be Democrats acting as if this is some sort of mandate of their monopolizing of good governance.
Right.
That's all it's going to be. And that's all. The game is over if you can do this. If you just make them believe that these misfortunes have nothing to do with their own actions and everything to do with bad guy or good guy. That's it.
Exactly.
And then you don't have to fight your own demons. You can fight that other thing, which doesn't require you to fight at all.
Which is the purpose, that's the purpose of a king. The purpose of a king is to push off your responsibility to somebody else. Exactly.
And you can do that politically just like this. You can perpetuate your delusions by pretending, and you don't even pretend. Look what they say, the words, make them believe, because guess what? They can make us believe pretty much anything because none of us are educated or virtuous anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if they make us believe, which is very easily done, then all they have to do is say, that guy's the problem. And then what do? You spend 6 hours a day on social media posting blasts at Biden or pro-Trump. You do that and you feel like you've accomplished something when you've done nothing at all. And you'd be much better off spent educating yourself, squaring away your personal virtue, getting yourself back in line with timeless principles of Western morality, squaring away your family, squaring away your children, leaving those people to themselves and dealing with this, but you don't because you're neck deep in your delusions. And it makes it comfortable because guess what? I don't have to spend those hours analyzing my own shortcomings and working on them. I can spend those hours pointing out that Joe Biden is an incoherent fool.
Right. And you will go down with the ship saying that.
Oh,
I mean, you will, I literally mean you will go to the grave saying it was Joe Biden's fault that I'm dead.
It's just like me. I'm a obviously fan of the St. Louis Cardinals, have been my whole life, literally. Well, I went to my first game at Busch Stadium when I was 5.
Yeah.
My whole family, Cardinal fans. When the Cardinals win, guess what I do? We won.
Right.
I didn't do jack, first of all. Right? I didn't do anything, but we won. And second of all, what do I attribute that to? We won, and then that's a good day. We won.
Right.
Right. When I really did nothing at all. Right. And it can affect my mood. Right. And this is the same with politics. If I had a elephant up here, we won. What did you win? How does my life change at all if the Cardinals win or lose? No.
Right.
Does my real life change? My mood changes.
And that might change your life.
And that could change in just exactly what they're talking about. And you know what I'm talking about because y'all are all the same way. You all have your Cardinals, right? You have your Cardinals version of the Cardinals, right? We win and your mood changes, but are you more prosperous? Are you happier? Are you holier? Are you calmer? Right? Is any of that less depressed? More rested? Is any of that true after that? No. If Donald Trump is elected president, none of those things are going to be true about any of us.
Mm-hmm.
And probably not even about himself.
Right.
Right? Because of how we are. But again, this is what they're saying. But all we have to do is make them believe that they're happier when their guy wins. Make them believe that America's in bad shape because of Joe Biden and the Democrats. See what I did there, Mike? I called him Democrat.
Oh, you're hilarious.
Let's go, Brandon. Get it? But on the other side, you have, Orange Man good,
right,
calling Trump Orange Man or
MAGA people.
Right, the Trump derangement syndrome, which is real. Trump derangement syndrome is real, but so is Democrat derangement syndrome.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
It's real. And this is what he's saying. And it's real. And if you can be convinced that your happiness, sadness, prosperity, failure depends on this guy or this guy's wisdom, that guy's stupidity, that guy's effectiveness, that guy's ineffectiveness, that's all we need, because then we got you.
Right.
Because you're not going to work on real.
That's where they gain all their power. They have no power except what we give them. Zero.
Yes.
And that's why they do these things. I love this paragraph. It's beautiful. From hence, the most famous legislators, princes, and generals have endeavored to instill into their followers an opinion of their being more than human, as being descended from or related to some god, or have asserted a familiar communion with the gods, a right to explain their wills, to execute their commands. By these means, they obtained an unlimited confidence in their abilities, a cheerful submission to their authority, and assurance of success under their conduct.
Meaning
that everything that it is virtuous for us to support the leader, the dear leader, dare I say, and because the leader, the king, the president is better than you. He's better than you.
He's better than you.
Yeah, and they're going to enforce. It's the emperor has no clothes,
but you want him to be better than you.
Right, but you don't want him to be a god. You don't want him to be or think himself as a god.
Don't you though? Do you not?
I guess my leader is God. So there's that.
Well, I mean, and you think about it, it's like everything points to this, that they want to be. All you have to do is get your believers to have an opinion, right? That your leader is better than the other guy, almost superhuman, that he has communion with the gods and all this. And, and that they have, all you have to do, he says, and if you do that, if you can convince them that your guy is so superior in so many ways to the other guy, then it will create what? An unlimited confidence in their abilities, a cheerful submission to their authority, and assurance of success of their conduct. Don't worry about what's real. Feed the delusion.
Right.
Perpetuate the kabuki that's going on. Keep the play going. Keep the theater open. Keep the play going. Change the actors if you have to, but keep perpetuating the plot. Keep propelling the plot. Keep feeding the delusion. Make it sound noble.
Yep.
Do all of these things, and then you will cheerfully submit to any sort of tyranny.
Right.
And it's all about the way you get to that is make it seem my guy is so superior to that guy. And if my guy were in charge, I'd be happy. And the whole reason our country is in the condition it's in is because of that guy. Well, that guy only has his access to positions of power because we are not people who insist on being ruled by virtuous people. We do not insist on it because we're not virtuous. We don't want to make the sacrifices necessary to do that, Mike.
Right.
We don't want to. And it's the whole thing. It's like wealth. Well, my guy's a good businessman.
Yeah.
It's what education.
By the way,
the Biden, the famous thing with Biden.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, I have a higher IQ than any of you in this room.
Right. And by the way, I love that. He's a good businessman. Therefore, he knows everything about, I don't know, world affairs. Therefore, he knows we have unlimited confidence in his ability to manage a virus. Therefore, he has unlimited, ability to manage an economy. Like none of those things.
I mean, because you got to remember all the lockdown and stuff and all the who started the mandatory vaccine.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
And he hasn't said it's bad.
It's not anti-Trump. This is pro-reality, pro-constitutional reality. Don't be, because right now someone's going to watch this and they're going to be saying, they're going to roll their eyes thinking we're being anti-Trump, which we've said as much bad about Biden as we've said about Trump, but well, he sure did a lot, but the economy sure wasn't in the tank when Trump was. Come on now.
Half the people are going to hate us because we said bad
matter.
Trump thing. Half that,
Even
I love
the
it.
presidential physical exam.
Oh, right.
That's not in the Constitution. The bloody Constitution doesn't say, and the executive shall have an exam every. No, but why do you do it? Why do you do it? Because you want to show our guy's in good shape. Your guy's senile. Now, when the exam comes out and says Joe Biden is not senile in the least. He's strong mental acumen. And what are you going to say? The other side's going to say, well, that's BS. And the other side's going to say, told you so.
Right.
And that's all it's going to. Has the ball moved closer to liberty? No, it hasn't. But you feel good because you've tilted at the windmill. You've convinced yourself it's a dragon. You've spent all day tilting at the windmill. Your quixotic political life is fulfilled. You're happy now because you get a chance to say, well, I heard that doctor was a friend of George Soros. You know what I mean? You do that. And it doesn't matter because you just want to be able to say, my guy good, that guy bad. And now you see, what do you see all over TikTok? You see, oh, Trump was slurring his words and speaking incoherently. Right.
Forgot his wife's name.
Who the freak cares?
And I got to look up Kaharic now.
Huh?
Kaharic? Is that what you said? I got to look up that word. Kaharic?
Quixotic?
Quixotic.
Oh, from Don Quixote?
Oh.
Tilting at windmills? He convinced himself. You never read Don Quixote?
No.
Oh, because you're blind.
I'm blind?
Yeah, and they didn't have Braille when you were.
No, they didn't. That was PB, pre-bail.
Bail? Oh. Man, did I ever tell you that? Do you have a bond?
That time you got sent to Switzerland?
Like, you're going to be bond? You're going to bond me out? Shoot. I wanted to work the register at the pizza place I was working after my mission. He's like, you're going to have to get a bond. I'm like, shoot, you let me have access to that till, I'm going to be bonded out. Funny things that poor people do. But yeah, all of that. It reminded me of, and I wanted to share this with you. It reminded me, because you say, these stately tyrants, if you go down to the next paragraph, these stately tyrants are for the most part. Now, just listen to this. Just listen to it without prejudice. Shout out George Michael, rest in power. Listen without prejudice and see if this doesn't describe the United States presidency. Please, under any party's control. He says, the stately tyrants are, for the most part, shut up in their palaces, where everything is august about them. Everything's stately and august. They seldom show themselves abroad to the people, and when they do, it's in the most awful and astonishing manner. Awful, not meaning awful the way we define awful, we'd say awesome.
Right.
Meaning the most awful and astonishing manner, attended by numerous guards, richly habited, right? Dressed well, retinue, right? And armed, whilst their own person, so the actual president himself, covered with gold and pearl, glittering with diamonds, and perhaps horses and elephants they ride on are in a blaze of gold and precious stones. If you don't see that, you're not paying attention. A 12-car motorcade, the president, never without 20 Secret Service people, right? The White House, you're not allowed near it. You can't. It's a palace. When you go abroad, the president needs a whole floor of the hotel, of the most expensive hotel, or maybe we're staying in a castle. We're going to kick everyone out. But this they're such stately tyrants, and they just have this retinue, this entourage, this air of nobility and of monarchy around our elected president, right? That is us. And it reminded me of how we do all these things because it's like, I don't see how England still has a royal family. We do.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, your president of the United States.
Please stand for the we have a song.
Right.
God save the king. What's the difference in that and hail to the chief? There is no difference. What's the difference in a golden carriage and a $2 million Cadillac? There is no difference.
Or a $100 million plane.
There is no difference. Joe Biden talking about, I'm going to get you on Air Force One, take you over to Canada.
Well,
what are you talking about?
One of the things I wrote down on that part was, is one of the issues is if we saw them as they really are, we would see how small and effeminate they are. And there's no way we could have confidence.
Well, like we talked about before, right?
Right.
Being a guy from Boise, not even able to, not the most effeminate, the weakest.
Right.
And that's, you take away all of that, and you're telling me, I mean,
Joe Biden can stand up for himself.
Yeah, Joe Biden can come and take a third of my income himself because he won. Come on. It reminded me all this story that they're telling. And please, guys, read number 19 for yourself, man. Come on. Please do that.
Hey, I'm gonna put it. I'll put a link there, so no excuses.
Ooh,
either way,
like a hot link,
like a hot link,
a sausage link.
Yeah.
I like a patty.
Spicy.
I like a good.
You like the good patty?
I like a patty. I'm not a link guy. I'm a patty. Yeah. I literally like when we go to breakfast places, I have to find out if they're link people or patty people.
Oh,
I only eat it.
You don't like those casings?
Patty. Well, I don't mind. It's not that. I just like patties. I'm a patty person.
Patty melt.
Yeah,
patty.
I'm Patty. Patty Roosevelt.
Joe Patty Wolverton.
Yeah, Patty. That's what they call me. And
Patty. That makes me think of it, the SNL skit.
Oh,
my name is Pat.
Yeah, it's just Pat. Ambiguously gay. All right. So Megacles. I'm not going to go on the story. Megacles, rich guy in Athens. Pisistratus. He's putting forward Pisistratus to be the tyrant of Athens. And he says, he drove out Pisistratus but then they made an alliance. So Megacles, it's a long story. Read it in Herodotus. Do yourselves a solid. Read 5 minutes of Herodotus tonight. Change your life, right? So Megacles and Pisistratus, shocker, political enemies somehow make an alliance. They make an alliance, kind of like we've signed an omnibus bill to keep the government functioning.
That just happens to send.
I just called him a devil and he called me a devil, but here we are shaking hands and we did it. We kept the government open.
And we're going to send $60 billion to Ukraine at the same time?
Thank good. We're spreading democracy.
That's true.
Democracy.
Democracy.
You know what, citizen?
Oh, sorry. I almost said empire
education.
What I meant.
So Pisistratus and Megacles, shocker of all shockers, they make an alliance. Pisistratus married Megacles' daughter, which is interesting. I'll tell this part of the story, parenthetical part. So Megacles, supposedly his family was cursed, and Pisistratus, he didn't want to be married to Megacles' daughter, and so they didn't have relations, marital relations. And the daughter tells her mom, which you might do. That might happen today.
Got a problem, Mom.
Mom, how are you doing? How are the newlyweds? What's it like being a wife? And she's like, my husband, what happened was he does not have me in a marital way. And Mom's like, what? She's like, yeah. Why?
He still doesn't know me.
He doesn't know me biblically. Well, the Bible hasn't been written yet, but you know what I mean.
You know what I mean.
Sure. He's like, he's like, why? Oh, because our family is cursed and he doesn't want to have a cursed baby. Well, that gets around to Megacles, and Megacles again loses his mind because he's like, what are you talking about? But anyway, that's a side story. So then they make an alliance and they tricked. So if you read this in Herodotus, they get this girl, this tall girl from some town around Athens. They put her on a chariot. They dress her up like Athena.
Okay.
Put her on a chariot, ride her into town, convincing Athenians that that's Athena. Right? And a woman named Phia. And yeah, so, it even says here, Megacles turned against Pisistratus when he refused to have children with Megacles' daughter. But they convinced. Now,
wow.
Don't we do that though, dude?
Yeah.
Don't we do that? We do that. We trot out our little Athena. We have the huge, the huge motorcade. Why? Because that guy's important.
Right.
Constitutionally, that guy ain't that important. And there's nothing constitutionally that would support the idea of a 12-car motorcade, of some giant mansion that the people are not able, the people used to be able to go to the White House and be like, can I talk to the president?
Isn't there great stories about John Adams? Like
John Adams, Andrew Jackson.
Yeah, Andrew Jackson.
Dolly Madison being like, waking up James Madison, like, I got people in the living room, bud. You gotta wake up, son. But anyway, we have to have this air of some otherworldliness. And then we mock countries. I can't believe they have a king. Dude, shut up. We have a king.
Right.
And it's worse than that because at least they cop to it.
Yeah.
At least they're not delusional about the fact that they're ruled by a king and we are delusional. But it's the Athena thing. It's Pisistratus, Megacles, and Athena. It's just like when you see at the State of the Union, when the president's like, and I want to recognize Jane Doe up there. Her husband fought in Afghanistan. And everyone's like, all that's just a little Athena.
Yeah.
It's just I want you to see that I'm a guy who recognizes the sacrifice of veterans, or I want to talk about, Lucretia Stevens and how she works 4 jobs to feed her family. And she had to overcome, she was born in the segregated South. Everybody's like, oh, this guy cares about race relations. It's just Athena riding through, and we're nothing but a bunch of deluded Athenians saying, oh my gosh, Athena's here.
Right.
Right. And that's all we do. And that's what this is, that these stately tyrants. And I love all this stateliness, all this ornateness, all this grandeur, he says, is all this prepares the gaping and enchanted multitude to swallow the plausible stories artfully given out amongst them of the sublime and celestial qualities of their emperors. Dude, is that not we are the gaping and enchanted multitude. Oh, he is such a good father. Oh, look what he cares about people. Look what he did this. Oh my gosh, he went and he met with these people at this school, and he went to the border to see all of that rubbish.
Mm-hmm.
It's just little Athena's being rode into town, and we're nothing more than the gaping and enchanting multitude, if I'm going to be called, let's play Would You Rather.
Okay.
Would you rather be a member of the gaping and enchanted multitude, or would you rather be a deplorable?
Oh,
Or would you rather be in a binder full of women? I'm bringing 2012.
Johnny, I'd like to be deplorable, please.
So, but yeah, deplorable though. I'd rather be gaping and enchanted.
Gaping, enchanted.
That was my nickname in high school. By the way.
Enchanted Gaping
What's
Joe.
Up, gaping enchanted. No, what's up with you, deplorable? Nothing. Just doing my thing.
I'm just
getting it.
That one.
Getting it. Gaping and enchanted or deplorable. You make the call. Call Mike on his personal cell phone.
The number is
555-867-5309.
867-5309.
Gaping and enchanted multitude. And then, of course, the next part, which I think is awesome. Now, you have to know your transitive property. If A equals B and B equals C, then what? A equals C.
A equals C.
So listen to knowing your transitive property, children. Follow your old Uncle Joey in what he's about to say. In all countries where liberty is established, however, people think for themselves. And all of these things are ridiculous and a farce, and they're grimaced and they're laughed at. In countries where liberty is established, none of this stuff we've been talking about happens. Because if it were to happen, we would laugh at it and we would think it was a farce and ridiculous. None of these pretenses none of these things we've described, which perfectly describe our country today, none of these things would exist in a free country. Therefore, we may say, if A equals B and B equals C, then A equals C. We're not a free country.
You mean we're not laughing? We're not
Liberty
laughing?
has not been established here.
No.
Because if it did, we would find such arts and pretenses ridiculous. We would laugh at them. They would have no ability to sway us one way or the other.
We're laughing because we like to laugh. I love to laugh. Ha ha ha.
I laugh to keep from crying, Mike.
But no, you're exactly right. But you're exactly right, man. The
people, and look what he says is the evidence of that. So if you have a country where liberty is established, they're not going to fall for the little Athenas. They're not going to fall for the grandeur. They're not going to fall for if my guy wins, we'll be happy. And if that guy wins, everything will be bad. And it's all his fault. We won't fall for that where liberty is established because we're educated and virtuous.
Right.
And what he says, those people, the people in countries where liberty is established, they have sense enough to know that all this profusion and wealth are their own spoils. Somebody's paying for the 12 limos. Someone's paying for the Air Force One. Someone's paying for the Marine One. Someone's paying for the house in Maryland. Someone's paying for the White House. Someone's paying for the trips here, there. Someone's paying for the chef. Someone's paying for the state dinners. Someone's paying for the 80 billion going. if you were in a free country, he says, that would never go for this because free people would have sense enough to know that all that is their money and being stolen from them, and they wouldn't put up with it.
Right. That's right. And
you know what just happened? The little Alpine guy, he fell off. The price is wrong, Bob.
The price is wrong. And I think,
they would not want to be labor and
right.
They wouldn't want to labor and still be lacking things so that their money could be used to keep others idle and wealthy. The freaking president, or whatever you want to call him, of Ukraine has condos in Miami and New York and Geneva.
Right.
He has retinues. He has more money than he could ever know what to do with. Stately mansions on the coast. All of these things he has, and you can't pay the blankety blank rent.
You paid for the
you did it,
you
man.
paid it
every time he splashes money for some bizarre dinner and to fly himself to Paris because he fancies a bit of baguette.
Right.
Every time that happens, you pay for it. And so since that happens and we do nothing about it because it feeds our Delulu fantasies, right? That proves that liberty's not established here because we wouldn't let that happen. We would not allow our miseries to be aggravated and mocked by pomp and luxury of our masters. Period. Therefore, we are not a country where liberty is established. Please quit saying that.
Well,
because that feeds our delusion.
Absolutely. And people, again, make mistakes. They make category mistakes. They'll say something like, we need to have a government or we need to have a king, even if we call it a president.
But at least have a good one.
Right. Well, that's what they say. They say, and then they point out people and those who know, they'll point out people like King Benjamin, or they'll point out people who were good kings. And then you look at it and you go, wait a sec. Why? Because he worked for himself. He didn't take the people's money. He didn't
read Germania. Jefferson loved
taxes. That's a great point. Yeah.
Like, how would you know the prince of a German tribe? You would know him because the people, first of all, he works for himself. He's just a farmer or whatever, like everybody else, but he has a bit more because the people voluntarily contribute to him because he keeps them out of war.
Exactly.
He keeps them safe. And he takes care of that kind of business for them. And as long as they're peaceful, they can be prosperous because they know war equals destruction equals poverty. And so if we're having peace, then we're able to be prosperous. And yes, we're going to voluntarily give that guy something. If tonight the great voice in the sky said, no more income tax, period, none. What you earn is yours. But you can, if you think the Biden administration is doing a good job, you can Venmo money to the Biden administration to thank them for the good job they're doing. How many people would be None. And that's a recognition that he's not doing a good job, but you have to support him because of your delusions, because he's your guy.
That's right.
Right. And if you're a Republican, well, taxes are the prices we pay for civilization. Well, you know what? Keep it. If this is civilization, I don't want it.
Right.
Right. And that's the thing, right? You used to know your king was a good, the wisest, bravest. I mean, he comes out and says it. Tacitus says they were chosen what? They were chosen for their wisdom, their virtue, their bravery, because they were better people.
Right.
And we wanted to be led by that. But today, we don't care. And today we allow, Mike, it's damning to us. It is damning that it says in countries where liberty is established, we would laugh at this nonsense. We would have sense enough to know that all of this nonsense is being paid by stealing from us, and we are left in poverty while they live wealthy, that our poverty is increased, our miseries aggravated and mocked by the pomp and luxury of our masters.
Right.
And if we were really free people, if we were our father's children, this wouldn't be happening. And we know that for a fact because it didn't happen, because in 1775, on April 19th, 50 blessed dairy farmers faced off the pre-dawn against one of the world's most powerful professional armies. That we know that for a fact. And we know for a fact, all we do is say, thank you, sir, may I have another? Please give me an extra 1% lower taxes. There you go, serf. Yeah, our guy's going to lower taxes. You know what? If he was your guy and he was constitutional, there'd be no income tax.
Zero.
So shut it with your Delulu fantasies. And just because they're yours, they're better than the other guy.
And again, just like what you said, like, what do they do with that money? It's not like they
mock us.
Yes.
They mock us.
They mock us. They spy on us. They incarcerate us. They kill us. And
what about, did you see that excuse for a human, Kamala Harris? Did you see her applauding when Biden's like, there's no reason that someone should be in jail for smoking marijuana? And she's like, yay, standing.
Yeah.
She put so many people in jail for that.
Right.
To get herself a little political credibility because she'd been nothing than a prostitute.
Right.
So when you're a prostitute to famous people and you get your leg, your foot in the door, then you got to do something. And her thing was, well, I'm going to be tough on crime. And she's sitting there applauding because he's like, you shouldn't be in jail if you smoke weed, which is true. But here's the woman that put how many black men, because she's not black, right? She's not African American.
She's not.
Okay. And so she puts these people in jail and then and what is that? Is that anything more than mocking us, than aggravating our misery? Guys, I don't care. This whole thing about if you're poor and you're working poor, you vote for Democrats. Dude, how do you do it when you recognize that this man, all of these people, they aggravate and mock us so that they can have pomp and luxury and so they can be our masters? Surely there's more of us than there are of them, Mike. Surely there's just a drop, a dram of our Father's blood in our veins. But here we are, and the transitive property proves we're not in a country where liberty has been established, or we wouldn't settle to be treated like wage slaves and mocked by the little Athenas running around town. At least I don't care much about it.
Well, man, that's...
I mean, read the paragraph. Dude, there's so much.
It's so good.
You go ahead.
Okay.
Forever.
Well, the next paragraph, amongst such people, virtuous and just actions or the appearance of virtuous and just actions are the only ways of gaining esteem, reverence, and submission. In other words, you have to at least act the part. And these people don't act the part.
You don't need to.
Right. Because we're not virtuous.
I can be completely incoherent. I can know nothing about what I'm talking about. I can get in front of a mic and I can lie my arse off about my own personal life. I can be an adulterer, right? I can say, well, when you're rich, you just got to grab them by the...
Right.
I can say that. I have to apologize for that. I'm apologizing for that. And you don't apologize for any of it because guess what? It doesn't matter because guess what? You are feeding the delusion. Those who serve you are feeding the delusion. And we know that this delusion becomes reality for almost everyone. And everyone is... there wouldn't be two parties if it wasn't for that being true.
It's almost quaint when you read some of the... So when we read the Founding Fathers and how they talk about each other. And I like the biggest thing that they rag on each other sometimes is their ambition. This person is ambitious. And you're just like, oh, that's hilarious. As our politicians are just like, vote for me and I will, bring the second coming. Vote for me and you will be prosperous in every way possible. Vote for me and you'll have 14 TVs instead of just the 2 that you have. To talk about that ambition.
I'm going to lower the tax rate.
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to be a kinder master.
That's right. It's going to be a compassionate conservatism. Right.
Well,
and that, to me, that's part of the thing. It's like,
but what? I mean,
we put up with it. We put up with it.
We not only do we put up with it, we promote it, we perpetuate it,
Right.
we prefer it.
Right.
That was like 3 points in categories, right
good.
there. Yeah. Well, yes, that would be the only way if we were real people with.
And if
where
that's the
liberty
case,
had been
he
established.
says, if that's the case, and thus with this kind of people, a prince who deals with this people can rarely be in danger from disaffected subjects or powerful neighbors. Why? Because he's actually serving the people. He's doing what they want to do.
Why?
What I need
Yeah,
to do.
right. You're not gonna. I mean, if someone's benefiting you,
Right.
but it doesn't matter. Even if you're guys, realize how true this is. Even if you're a Republican, dyed-in-the-wool Republican, and you're personally better off financially since Joe Biden became president, you will
Yes.
refuse to admit that, and you know that in your heart. You would say, I'd be better off. Even if you're twice as wealthy as you were before, and even if you benefited from whatever cockamamie unconstitutional policies this psychotic Alzheimer's patient has been at the forefront of, you're still not going to admit that because of these partisan delusions that we suffer from. I mean, this paragraph, to me, I wrote beside it, the Biden presidency to a T. Because he says that you'll have these politicians, and he's like, listen to the things that they will do that won't matter. If you're in a state where, in a country where the delusion is predominant, where most of the people have contracted that fatal disease of delusion, then this is what politicians will do, and it won't matter. He says they will obstinately pursue schemes big with public ruin. They will weaken the authority of the people to strengthen their own. They will endanger the safety of the people for the security of their own heads. Do you not? If you're flying 300,000 people into this country because you know they'll vote for you, you are literally weakening the authority of the people to strengthen your own. You are literally endangering the safety of people for your own political security. You will use your power for the protection of your crimes. You will thrive on public ruin, and you will be the known author of universal calamity. That's it. Those things will happen in these countries where the majority, the supermajority, nearly all the people are suffering from these delusions that are perpetuated and promoted by the political elite class and the sycophants that surround them. And that's where we are.
Absolutely.
We don't mind, because you can't deny that all of those things are true of the Biden presidency. But you know what would happen, Mike, if we had right here a Biden supporter? Do you know what he would say? He wouldn't deny those things. Do you know what he would say?
He would say he's better than Trump.
Exactly. He would say, well, Trump does just as bad.
Yep.
That's not a response to those charges.
And as you were,
right?
No.
You can't, it's like when you get in trouble with, your mom finds out you're doing something wrong. You're like, well, at least I'm not on drugs.
Right.
Huh? What's that got to do with it? But that's the thing. It's like, and guys listening and watching, if you're being honest with yourself, that if we had an ardent Biden supporter sitting here, or if you out there are an ardent Biden supporter, if I read this to you and said, these things are all true of the Biden presidency, your response would not be, yeah, I really hate that those things are true. I wish we had a better. No, your first response would be, well, Trump did just as bad, if not worse. That would be your response, and you know it.
Yep.
And that's all we need to know about who we are.
And this goes back to what we talked about actually in the last episode, that when we don't love liberty for its own sake, then we want liberty, or we'll take anything that will make us richer, that will make us more comfortable, that will make us quote unquote safer, that will give us the delusion of,
Yeah, because it's even beyond that. That's that whole spreadsheet support for liberty. But it's even beyond that. This letter, I think, goes to closer to the heart of it, where it's that it doesn't even matter. Like I said, if you're more prosperous under Biden and you're a Republican, it doesn't matter. You're going to find a way to say, well, that's because of policies that Trump put in place. Or you're going to, or it's not going to matter at all. And you're simply going to say, Trump, I'd be so much better off under Trump, instead of just saying, yeah, you know what? Hey, the policies have worked out for me. The last thing that I had, well, I mean, a couple of things, I guess, but I know we've been going how long? Almost 2 hours now.
Hey.
2 good hours.
It's been
so fun. I've never had so much fun. That's not true.
Yeah. Well,
no, Mike, don't. This is a family show.
Okay.
So listen to what he says here. The city of Rome saw itself under, so the decemvirs, not going to go into it. It's Latin for 10 men. Emergency, they give power to these 10 men to make a new law. And it was like, you have 1 year, do your thing, blah, blah, blah. They did not want to give up power, right? Of course, who would? No one would. The decemvirs didn't want to give up power. They extended their time in office once. And then they're like, yeah, you know what? It's kind of cool being here. Let's keep it up, right? So they maintained. So Rome saw itself under a new government. And then he makes a quotation from Livy, which says, well, in English, it's men mourned for liberty as forever lost, nor did any one arise or seem likely to do so in its defense. That's what he wrote. He wrote it in Latin.
Oh, that's interesting, because I looked that up, and I had the Google translation was, freedom is forever lamented and no avenger has arisen to seem to be or seems to be forthcoming.
Yeah, that's
kind of the same thing. That's kind of cool.
I just took it from the Loeb translation of Livy.
Yeah. I took it from the Google translation of.
Well, I translated it in my mind, and I'm like, okay, that he got that from. So I was just looking to which.
That's cool.
So Livy, but the point is, okay. So see if this sounds familiar. So someone, in this case, it was 10 someones, but someone exercising unconstitutional authority in Rome. And this was what happened. The Constitution was gone. All men complained, yet none offered to help. The people of Rome were despondent at home. Domestic situation, financially and every other way, despondent. They were despised abroad. The Roman territories were invaded. I mean, wind space. I mean, do you know?
Yeah.
The Constitution is gone. Now, we can restore it, but it's like this says, men mourned for liberty as forever lost, and no one arose who seemed likely to do so in its defense. Right? Everybody complains. Who's doing anything about it? You're not, but that's this whole letter is about. Why don't we? Because we have this comfortable delusion.
Yeah.
We're really comfortable thinking, once my guy gets in office, man, everything changes. I don't have to worry about really fighting against anything because my guy's going to get in office and everything's going to be constitutional again.
Yeah. There's a guy.
I want to see if it did like anything. Right. Oh man, how come we can't get it to do the thumbs up?
Maybe it's just like once a time.
Thumbs up.
There's
prayer. I don't know. I was hoping to do like the hands or something.
There's a guy who I like to watch. He's the civil rights attorney. I think is his YouTube channel. I like his stuff. But he's got a great saying that I think applies. It's that freedom is scary, and we don't want to take responsibility.
Dude, we just want to stay at home.
Yep.
Where we get our meals cooked by mom, our laundry's done by mom, We cleaned up after by mom. The cable's provided by mom and dad. The Wi-Fi is paid for by mom and dad. Groceries are bought by mom and dad. I'm 30 and I could go out and do this myself, but why would I?
Right.
It's
scary out there.
Yeah, it's scary. Why? And culturally, everybody likes to say, them Gen Alpha, they're just coming home and they're just mooching off their hardworking parents. Well, we as Americans, we're Gen Z.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
We're mooching off our founding fathers.
Yep.
Well, they can die for liberty. They can give up their lives, fortune, and sacred honor for liberty. And I'm just going to stay in my room.
And I'm going
to play Fortnite.
Yep. And I'm going to let some, 80-year-old kidnap my kid to send him to war.
Yeah, and exactly. But I can do what? I can get on TikTok or I can get on Instagram and put up a funny meme. And then people know that I'm serious about restoring liberty because I just mocked Joe Biden.
Right.
Or I just put up a thing about how inflation is higher. See, I really love my Constitution because you know what it says in the Constitution? That we have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness right there in the Constitution, Mike. And if you don't believe me, go look it up in the federalization papers. John Stevens and Alexander.
It was in number 148.
Look in the federal papers and you'll see that life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, it's right in the Constitution,
right.
Mike, because I love liberty. Mom, when's dinner?
I have a question for you, Joe.
No.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, talking history, we're talking Roman history.
Yes.
Before PTT or BTT, before TikTok, Roman history. What did those Romans do with those dudes that wanted to stay in power longer than they were allowed to? What did they do?
They treated them manfully.
Manfully.
Mm-hmm.
They did. And what happened?
They restored their liberty.
I love this paragraph.
Go on then.
When this happened, 2 chief traders were cast into prison, the rest into banishment. This soon, it didn't take forever. This soon.
Yeah. Now wait. Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
So you gotta.
I'm jumping the gun a little bit.
No. No, the 2 chief, because at the end there were 2 guys that were like at the center of it all, right?
Right.
You can read that in Livy. Please read Livy. Don't drink downstream, man. Read Livy. The 2 guys, they finally got rid of them. The two of them were cast into prison. The other 8 guys were banished from Rome, right? Now, let's put ourselves in that position. Let's put ourselves in the position of we're going to actually raise a generation of men who have the vitality, virtue, and valor of our fathers by the quart in every vein. Let's pretend that for a minute,
okay,
for the sake of discussion. And those young men who rise up and demonstrate their love of liberty and their understanding of the source of our liberty, then, and they get rid of these tyrants and they restore our liberty as it once was. Now read that part you were going to read. This is what happened. This is what could. And why? I have no way of judging the future but by the past. This happened in Rome. It can happen here. And if we have that generation that is going to banish the traitors, punish them, restore our liberty, and then what?
This soon happily changed the state of affairs. And the spirit of the people who, having got at length an honest administration and governors whom they loved and trusted, quickly beat the enemy out of the territories of Rome, that very enemy who in other circumstances had beaten them.
That it may be so. Mike is gone.
You are listening to And If Love Remains.
Gone but not forgotten.
First of 23 installments requested by Dr. Leavitt. Trying to be in compliance here because we're taking him and that whole organization.
Speak peace like a Buddhist.